Good morning, everyone. So let us now proceed to the next part of the report, which is managing IT and organizational changes. So in this chapter, we consider the relationships between effective communication, social identity, and e-democracy in organizations that exist in the constantly changing global business and technological environment. We also consider the inevitability of organizational e-democracy in organizations undertaking information technology changes, the technology at the base of e-democracy. So we define e-democracy as the technological advances in communication media that provide employees with more information and more direct access to other employees. These changes to communication channels provide organizational connections and lead to e-democracy practices that seek to improve the autonomy of organizational members. Thus, there is a freeing of information to help erase or ease organizational boundaries, which changes the relationship between executive and middle management parties. This chapter highlights two important issues within the area of organizational change and new technology introduction. First, the changes in employees' perceptions of their role and the groups within the organization that they identify with that are brought about by ICT-enabled change. And second, the implications of these changes for HR practitioners. So this chapter includes a research study about the paradox of democracy in organizational research. This study focuses on a change in a large Australian metropolitan public hospital that was undergoing significant organizational re-engineering change, both in its infrastructure as well as in the introduction of new technology. They used a sample from a series of 85 in-depth unstructured interviews with a cross-section of healthcare employees. They examined how these employees described and identified with the changes in the processes. These changes include staff restructuring, the introduction of innovative wards to trial changes that were planned to occur in the new hospital building, the devolution of finance from management to department level with the introduction of new financial technologies. So the findings of this study suggest that IT implementations are sometimes installed at the expense of other systems, which may be more directly beneficial to the patient or the customer. To generalize to other organizations, we ask, are organizations installing IT for IT's sake without due consideration of the needs? Paradoxically, this approach to IT, and in particular ICT change, may disadvantage the original aims of the organization. Now let us proceed with the next topic, which is managing and practicing organizational development in an IT environment. The objectives of this chapter are to explain the most common issues resulting in IT failure and waste, explain how organizational development can address these issues, present a model for managing and practicing organizational development in an IT environment, describe how to use the model to create effective teams, organizational alignment, and organizational learning in IT projects, and lastly, to prescribe practical strategies for ensuring success in IT projects. Failure was not an option for the e-records project. The health, safety, and lives of its constituents were at stake. The initiative sought to create a client-server application and database to replace the hundreds of thousands of files a government agency used to track those in its care. These files contained the most sensitive bits of information on each benefit recipient, and the decisions made from these files were literally a matter of life and death. The government had located millions of dollars in funding to e-records, and the project was publicly supported and promoted at the highest levels of government. Multiple agencies contributed financial and human resources. The best known, most expensive contractors formed an integrated team to develop and implement the new system. The project personnel were virtually an all-star team of the best and brightest in their field. Every possible resource was devoted to the initiative's success, and the lives and careers of thousands were riding on it. And yet, e-records failed. So what are the reasons for failure of IT projects? First is poor communication, and then unclear goals, and lastly, lack of senior management support. Failure in IT projects can be defined as exceeding a projected budget, taking longer than the estimated schedule, failing to meet agreed upon quality requirements, or some combination of the three. Some of the more common types of IT projects include software application development, hardware and software implementation, database management and revision, hardware and software upgrades, and network infrastructure improvements. When discussing two fields as disparate as organizational development and information technology, it is essential to clarify the terminology of each at the outset. In the case of these particular fields, where a word such as system or process may have different meanings in each, such definition is absolutely necessary. So defining terms is also a good investment of time in the early ages of information technology specific organizational development efforts, minimizing misunderstandings later in the project. The following terms are the key to this discussion. First is organization development. So this can be defined as a process that applies behavioral science knowledge and practices to help organizations achieve greater effectiveness, including increased financial performance and improved quality of work life. This definition of organizational development accommodates that essential interaction, and the pace and investment in IT projects demand the successful management of that interaction. Next is information technology. Information technology also has a variety of definitions, most of which are largely derived from the perspective of the person doing the defining. So John Torf defines information technology as a general term used to refer to all aspects of computing and communications technology, including hardware and software, that encompasses the creation, storage, processing, distribution, and display of information for a variety of uses, including business, educational, artistic, scientific, recreational, or personal. This definition accommodates office applications, communication systems such as email and groupware, specialized systems such as accounting packages, and internet and worldwide websites and applications. While the field of information technology is as broad and diverse as the organizations and individuals that use it, this discussion will place IT in a much more focused context. Next is projects and project management. The project management body of knowledge defines a project as a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. Projects may be as short as a few weeks or as long as a few years, but they are distinct from an ongoing business concern in that they have a planned beginning and end. The field of project management, defined as the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet the project requirements. Systems processes, and process consultation. So as mentioned earlier, IT and organization development have different meanings for the same terms, and being clear on these dual meanings will help in establishing rapport. So it will also save time and confusion during the more critical points in the project. A system in IT terms usually refers to some combination of software, hardware, or both that work together to perform a specific function or set of functions. Similarly, IT professionals understand process as an activity that receives inputs and acts upon them to produce outputs. Customers, requirements, and quality. Three important and related terms in this discussion are quality, requirements, and customer. Quality is defined as a measurable standards for comparison so that applications can be consistently directed toward business goals. Requirements are specific statements of those measurable standards of comparison for a given process, while a customer is any person or organization who receives the output of a process. One final term needs to be defined for this discussion, and that is team building. So William Dyer lists four criteria for success in team building. First is the top management must provide clear support. Second is that organizational rewards should support teamwork. Next is time for team development should be encouraged and made available. And lastly, people must clearly understand what team building is and what it is not. So, information technology and organizational development remain distanced by differences in priorities, undefined relationships, and incomplete approaches. Each pursues different and often conflicting goals and values. Similarly, the relationship between information technology and organizational development and the benefits of creating such a relationship has not been defined and does not have any many models to emulate. IT professionals who do have a view of the larger organizational picture, usually mid to upper level managers, are often caught up in the political struggles common in the upper level of organizations. While both groups believe in the holy IT trinity of cost, schedule, and requirements, that trinity serves different ends for each. Neither directly feels the mounting losses of ID project waste, and almost no one comprehends the magnified cost downstream. These are measured in lost opportunities, lost revenue, and lost jobs. Now for undefined relationships. While the most common persistent issues in IT projects are the very sorts of issues organization development addresses, few IT projects have an OD practitioner as a team member or consider OD critical to success. The historic role of the OD practitioner in IT project has been limited to narrowly focused efforts such as training, project communication, and documentation. While these functions are important in any IT environment, the OD practitioner has far more to offer to the IT organization. The real OD work lies within the IT project team itself. For incomplete approaches, the field of organization development has not invested the effort in defining its relationship to IT in the same way project management has. As a result, IT professionals know little about organizational development and takes little notice of IT. Now, IT demands results and OD is seldom held accountable for them. While OD practitioners seem to believe that newer and better techniques will produce more consistent, meaningful, though vague outcomes, IT continues to invest its faith in the controlling mechanisms of project management, and both are the worse for it. So in order to stop the cycle of IT project failure and waste, IT project teams must learn to learn, correcting recurrent behaviors that impede their success. OD efforts to facilitate these improvements must respect the boundaries of the project, delivering results while working within the schedule and budget of the IT project. Time and cost are at a premium in the IT project. This is perhaps the strongest element of the IT culture. The OD practitioner interested in working with IT project teams must understand that their work will be evaluated in these terms. Now here's a model for integrating IT and OD. The differences in priorities, undefined relationships, and incomplete approaches have impeded IT-OD collaboration. A model for integrating and defining shared priorities, relationships, and approaches creates a way to overcome these barriers and begin the work of developing the IT project team. The IT project success funnel is that model. Under organizational strategy is project purpose. This is a specific objective or objectives met by the IT project, and these are where the most direct links to organizational strategy are emphasized. The project purpose is the means by which the IT projects supports to organizational strategy. The next level is requirements, which refer to the specific things the product or service of the IT project must do. These are the means for achieving the ends of the project purpose. These specify what the IT project's end product or service is supposed to do. Next is the project schedule. This element in the funnel defines the time by which the requirements of the project can be delivered upon. The project schedule plays an important role in supporting the requirements, purpose, and strategy, and that the IT project's role is often time sensitive. At the bottom of the funnel is cost. Cost is the smallest part of the funnel but is the part most likely to receive attention throughout the project, especially from the IT project team and manager. Cost and schedule are the most clear indicators in any IT project, although meeting these requirements says nothing about the value delivered by the IT project. Cost is at the bottom of the funnel for the purposes of OD intervention because problems throughout the funnel's levels always trickle down to cost, whether through serving the wrong goals and purposes, unmet or unnecessary requirements, and many more. Now, using the project charter, the model is a useful theory for thinking about the parameters of an IT project, but the OD practitioner has to bridge the gap between theory and practice to create real results in the IT project. One of the most useful tools for an OD practitioner in contracting and working with an IT project manager is a project charter specifying the IT project's organizational strategy linkage and the purpose of the project, and laying out the highest levels of requirements and schedule and cost. The IT project charter is usually created by the IT project manager and OD practitioner together at the outset of the project or when the OD practitioner joins the team. The charter should include the name of the IT project, the name of the IT project sponsor, the unit of the organization that is requesting or sponsoring the project, the beginning and end dates of the project, the name of the OD practitioner, the date of the OD practitioner joined the project, the organizational strategic objective of the project supports, the purpose of the project, a list of 3 to 5 high-level requirements for the project, and a reference to where the complete requirements are recorded, a high-level project schedule with major milestone dates and deliverables, and lastly, a high-level statement of the project's budget and funding source. Once the elements of the IT project success funnel are established and agreed upon, The OD practitioner must design ways to use the model as a lever for positive change with the IT project team. The IT project team is able to improve organizational alignment and organizational learning. Warner Burke notes that when a work group has at least one goal common to all members, and when accomplishment of that goals requires cooperative interdependent behaviors on the part of all group members. As for the IT project team building may be an appropriate intervention. So there are four purposes of team building. First is to set goals or priorities. Next is to analyze or allocate the way work is performed according to team members' roles and responsibilities. Next is to examine the way the team is working, and lastly, to examine relationships among the team members. Some other issues to be explored are how to gain entry into IT projects, specific techniques for negotiating the roles and expectations between the OD practitioner and the IT team, which techniques are more appropriate than others in improving IT project team communication and performance, possible areas of focus beyond the IT project team's effectiveness, how to establish a baseline for measuring results of interventions, and what are the differences between various types and stages of IT projects. IT projects will continue to consume organizational energy, time, and money. Yet the approach to managing and learning in IT projects can, with incremental adaptations, result in far greater effectiveness and organizational impact in IT projects. With some incremental change, IT can continue its growth with less of the burden of failure it bears today. That's all for my report. Thank you.